3, Keith Locke. Order. I've called Keith Locke and I asked members to show some courtesy. Members at the back of the House. Keith Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Justice and asks, does he agree with the International Federation of Journalists that if the Search and Surveillance Bill proceeds in its present form, it will, quote, undermine the long-held right of journalists to protect the confidentiality of sources? If not, why not?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister of Justice, no, I don't. The media's right to protect confidential sources under the Evidence Act 2006 has been expressly carried over to this bill for examination orders, production orders and all searches. Under the bill, a journalist presented with an examination order or a production order may refuse to answer questions or produce documents that would reveal the identity of their source.
Keith Locke.
Supplementary. Isn't it true that before the claim of privilege is heard, the journalist may be forced to produce those documents and disclose confidential sources, leading the New Zealand Herald editors to say that these powers to reveal confidential sources threaten, quote, the public airing of some of the country's most important and uncomfortable news stories?
The Honourable Chris
Speaker,
Finlayson.
on behalf of the Minister of Justice, no. I think what the member is actually referring to is a situation where the claim to the privilege may be disputed. In those certain circumstances, it may be necessary to refer the material to a judge who can determine the validity or otherwise of the claim. That's the procedure that's set out under the Evidence Act, in which the Green Party didn't oppose when that was debated 3 years ago.
Keith Locke.
Supplementary. What concerns does he have that the power to require documents to be produced on request under the threat of a jail term is now available to a host of government departments, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Fisheries, etc.?
The Honourable Chris
On behalf of the Minister of Justice, none.
Keith Locke.
Supplementary. Will he consider deleting the examination orders in the Search and Surveillance Bill because, in the opinion of the International Federation of Journalists, New Zealand Herald editors, etc., they contravene the right of New Zealanders to silence and may force journalists to disclose their sources?
Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister of Justice, no.
Keith Locke.
Supplementary. Does he agree with the International Federation of Journalists that the Search and Surveillance Bill will, quote, erode the democratic role of working journalists in New Zealand, and that they are not satisfied by a subsequent judicial hearing of a right to privilege if the government agencies have already run off with the documents containing their confidential sources?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister of Justice, no, that is hyperbolic nonsense.
Keith Locke.
If it is hyperbolic nonsense, then why did the chair of the Select Committee, Chester Borrows, tell Radio New Zealand that the bill may warrant further consideration, and he considered the criticisms of the journalists seriously, and won't the Minister take another look at the concern expressed by a range of journalists, including their international federation?
Before I ask the Minister to answer the question, I believe the Minister has no responsibility whatsoever for what the chair of a select committee may have said. In fact, he probably shouldn't even be commenting on it, so I don't believe it's appropriate for me to allow that question. I apologise to the member. Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallett.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Minister can...
Order. The point of order is being heard.
Mr. Speaker, I think a Minister can take into account the comments of a chair of a select committee made publicly. I think that's certainly within the rules. If it's done in a public way, ministers can, if they wish, either take them into account or ignore them.
Order. I think we get into dangerous territory if we have ministers commenting on what chairs of select committees do. They are matters for this Parliament, not for the executive. And once a matter is reported back to this House, I'm more comfortable about it. But while a matter is with the select committee. I'm not comfortable about that at all. What I'll do, because I don't want to deny the member his supplementary question, I invite him to reword the question and see if he can bring it within order. Keith Locke. Point of order, the Honourable Member.
Can I just ask you to review the ruling that you've just made? I think it is one which is worth another look after a bit of time.
I'm always prepared to, on request, look at what I've done, but I would be very concerned about ministers have no responsibility for chairs of select committees. But I invite Keith Locke to bring his question within standing orders.
Will the Minister take another look at the bill and the possibility of revising it, given the concern expressed by a wide range of journalists, including the International Federation of Journalists and some other political figures who have commented publicly expressing an interest in further considering the bill?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister of Justice, no.
Point of order?
Point of order, Keith Locke.
I seek leave to, and I take your standard that you don't like press statements tabled, but in this case the International Federation of Journalists statement is on an international website and mightn't be available, so I seek leave to table the statement by the International Federation of Journalists 12th of November on New Zealand bill undermines journalists' rights is the heading of it.
To table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Supplementary question, Charles Chevelle.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Will the government secure the Labor Party's support for the now substantially redrafted legislation by taking up its offer for that support if the government includes in the bill specific provisions to better affirm press freedom, provide for better controls on serious fraud office powers, and make production and examination orders available only for the most serious offences and under the supervision of judges?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
On behalf of the Minister of Justice, the Minister has no responsibility for the Serious Fraud Office or any aspect of its administration.
Point of order.
Point of order, Charles Chevelle.
Sir, my question was about whether or not the government would be willing to amend the legislation in the three ways indicated. The Minister has carriage of the bill, so he has responsibility for all the matters that are in the bill.
I believe in answering the Minister pointed out that the Minister of Justice doesn't have responsibilities, I understand it, for the Serious Fraud Office, which was one of the parts, one of the components of the member's question. And I can't, I believe, constrain the Minister beyond that. I think he did answer that part of the question.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, Charles Chevelle.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I seek leave to table a letter from the Labor Party to the Minister offering support for the legislation if it's redrafted in the ways indicated in my question.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Question number 4, the Honourable Pete Hodson.
Point of